4, 3, 2, 1, go. Hey guys, Ranchin here bringing all sorts of commentary. This is going to be the second set between Kwanro and Bogus in the round of 16 of the Nate MSL. Facing off against each other on Fighting Spirit. We're going to have Kwanro at the upper left-hand position as the purple Zerg and Bogus at the lower right-hand position as the brown Terran. Kwanro 1-0 behind, or 0-1 behind rather, after, well, going for the fail Zerg Guardian build. At least that's what I'm calling it lately, because every time Zergs transition into Guardians off of 3 bases these days, they 2 to 3 bases, kind of 3 bases. Yeah, they just lose, basically. Terrans spot it coming, Terrans know it's coming, and they either go mass science vessels and just irradiate the crap out of it, alongside some ground unit support, or they just go for 3-port wraiths and rip all the air units to pieces, absolutely. Problem with it, honestly, I find, is because when you transition to Guardians, you don't get Scourge, just in case. I don't find them going for Scourge because you can't really afford all that. You want to keep some Mutalisks in the air. You really have to rely on your Mutalisks to support your Guardians in the air against any other anti-air forces, and they can't really do that too well with all those Medic Marines on the ground. So it becomes all one huge big old problem for these guys, for the Zergs to actually do some sort of damage, because especially if the Guardians get spotted, they can just get countered so easily. Let's see what's Kwanro going to go here. He's getting Overlord first, so most likely going to go for 12 hatch build. This is a 4-player map, so generally that's what you're going to see the Zerg go for. On the opposite side, Zizo Rax going down. I think Bogus might be going for a 1 Rax into expansion. Very popular for Terran's overall flash, especially using this build pretty much all the time. But it's especially good on a map like this. Generally, you don't want to go for a 14cc against Zerg just in case. Because you go for a 14cc and the Zerg decides, you know what, I'm going to 9-pull today. And if he spots you out quickly enough and sends Zergs your way, you will find yourself in a lot of trouble. You might fight it off, but you might have to sacrifice quite a bit of SCVs and some forces on the ground, and you just might end up seriously economically behind. But yeah, I think if Kwanro, if he goes for his usual style, his usual aggressive, he gets his 3 bases up and then just runs off that, I feel Kwanro can win, particularly where you saw Hero fail against the Light, except maybe he won't go for Guardians. He is going for a hatchery inside of his base, which is actually going for a 2-base, 3-hatch build. Looks like he's going to go for Mutos to put on some pressure. And Bogus just now going to get a scout on that with his SCV. Going to be able to run inside. Still no extractor. Spawning pool coming in very late for Kwanro. He's going to his 3rd hatchery before spawning pool. So he's actually going very production heavy to start things off. He's going to want to produce very heavily, and that's actually a very interesting build for him. It is going to be fairly safe. I don't think Bogus is really going to be able to put on any sort of pressure. You might decide right now to go for a bunker rush on that natural expo. 2nd barracks right now coming up. Don't actually see him producing any Marines. But if you went for a bunch of Marines right now off that one single rack, he might have bunker rushed that natural expansion, but he's apparently not going to do that. Natural expansion should have now come up because the drones have been pulled off the line. Production hatchery almost up as well. I'm actually really surprised to see this strategy from Kwanro. Really interesting because you don't see that many Zergs go for this. Rather risky. It's kind of like going for 3 base, except you don't split yourself as heavily across the map. You get that instead of an additional mining base, which you won't be able to saturate until fairly late anyway. Instead, you get that additional production hatchery. And you're going to be able to produce troops pretty quickly. They're already up, so I assume this is going to be a 2-base Muta build, but he might end up surprising me. I'm not really quite sure. It's all going to come down. I'm wondering whether you're putting down the extractor and the natural. Still doesn't have the extractor and the natural expansion coming up, but if he is putting it up very soon, that is going to be the case. Wondering whether Bogus is still running around inside the main. There are only 2 Zerg being produced, so the scout is not going to be able to be prevented unless Bogus kind of fails a little bit. Meanwhile, he's getting his academy up. Probably is going to have an engineer bay alongside just in case there's going to be Muta. Do see the extractor, the natural expansion come down. Bogus seeing that, it is going to give him a clue. This is going to be 2-base Mutas coming at him. Meanwhile, Kwanro actually has a couple of Zerglings running out close to Bogus' base. They're not going to really be able to do any sort of damage. But has actually a couple of Marines, I think, moving out and possibly to put on some pressure. I don't really think he's going to be able to do too much of that. Yeah, just kind of pushing those Zerglings across the bridge so they kind of bugger off. Finally, Bogus did lose his SCV scout. Kwanro, meanwhile, getting a 2nd gas up. So he is going to be able to produce mutas at a pretty high rate. Bogus should be ready for this as his comm station coming up. Does have an eBay going, so he's probably going to have his turrets up fairly soon. The natural expansion can be harassed fairly heavily by mutalisks unless you're defending it properly, because there is quite a bit of space behind that base to move in with those. Kind of the natural formations of the map protect the mutalisks a little bit. It's not as pronounced as on match point, but it is still pretty pronounced. Speed actually up for Kwanro and Zergins. This is very much Kwanro. He doesn't have that many Zergs on the ground, but he's still deciding, just in case, to invest in Zerg speed. Also getting a sunken colony actually at his natural expo. Despite lack of pressure, just getting that preemptively. I'm wondering whether he's actually going to turn that into a sunken instantly, or only when he spots some sort of push coming in from a weapons one. Also on the way for Bogus alongside a third bunker. So he's third barracks, I'm sorry. No bunker at the front, just because he's not really expecting any sort of pressure after he scouted that out on Kwanro's part. He's not expecting any sort of pressure. Kwanro putting down additional creep colonies, not chaining him to sunkens yet, because he's really not seeing any sort of pressure coming in from Bogus. And I'm actually wondering whether Bogus is going to try to push out a little bit, getting an additional factory. I'm wondering whether he will push out to try to put on some sort of pressure, or whether he's going to stick inside of his base, play defensive, because he knows mutalisks are coming. He doesn't want to be caught off guard. Still don't see any turrets up for him yet. Maybe he's waiting for that scan, just so he can scan off. And I'm actually quite like, yeah, scan going off inside the main, not spotting anything because the Spire is hidden here at the production hatchery. And I think Bogus, of course, spotted the production hatchery, but I'm not quite sure whether he scanned that or scanned the natural instead. Bunker coming in at very close at the natural expansion, so it should be enough to, I think that's close enough to fire at Mulas coming in. And Kwanro actually going to expand at the 11:30 o'clock. Still moving with some Zerglings, putting on some pressure, pushing back a little bit, but definitely with a bunker at the front. Not even quite sure whether it's going to reach. Only mutas that come in from the right side. Mutas are mostly going to come in from the north, so I'm not really quite sure whether they're going to reach enough. Just now, turrets coming out a little bit late. Mutas are already on the way, but I think these are going to be in time, putting some turrets in pretty much at all positions. There are going to be a lot of mutas coming in on him. Meanwhile, he's getting a Hydra Den alongside. I think that was an evolution chamber up, so he's going to transition quickly into 3-base lurkers. Not going to transition to any sort of big area, and I'm actually quite happy that he's not going to do that, because it's just so easy to spot that out for Terrans. But Bogus is pretty well ready for this. Doesn't have as many turrets at his main in front of his production buildings, but he has a lot of turrets at the Natural Expo. He's going to be in a fairly good position to defend these mutas. I don't think Kwanro's going to be able to accomplish too much with these, but he is going to be able to follow up with lurkers. At the very least, he's going to be able to keep Bogus on those 2 bases while he gets up his third. That's already something. He's going to try to come in from behind from the upper right side. Going to take one single turret up, picking off some SCVs alongside, takes down a second turret. We're going to see if he goes for a third one. Medic Marine should be on the way just as he does this. Loses a mutalist there, but picks off some SCVs. Does have a large enough group to just pick off SCVs. Should actually be able to continue to do the Bogus actually pushing out a little bit, so Kwanro's going to be forced to attack those forces, stimming up. And it means Kwanro, getting those 3 turrets down. Bogus trusting in his turrets far too much, not minding at all his natural expansion at the moment. Kwanro being very aggressive with his mutalisks, flying between the Medic Marine numbers at the left side and still threatening the SCVs on the right side. Having Hydras moving out right now, they're going to be transitioning into lurkers very soon. Bogus desperately trying to rebuild his static air defenses, but this mutal just not picking off a lot of SCVs. Finally, some Marines actually going to move out for Bogus. I think he might have spotted 11:30 o'clock, so he's going to move towards that. It does have weapons one at the moment. Some Zerglings alongside Mutas coming in. He tries to picking stuff off. Already picked some of the forces off. Zerglings kind of acting as a little bit of a shield for the Mutas. And now I think far too few forces here for Bogus to really be able to fight these Mutas off. He's just going to finish off the rest of Bogus' army. And the medics survive, of course, a little bit longer than everybody else, but Bogus already in a lot of trouble. Kwanro playing beautifully with these mutalisks, having a large number of them. Meanwhile, has those 2 creep colonies in the natural expansion, not really doing much else. Getting his 3rd gas up. Bogus desperately throwing down his cannons. Turrets, I'm sorry. But you already see that his saturation in the Natural Expo was severely hampered. Still sitting on 4 racks, has a starport up. Most likely waiting on his science facility when it can. Oh! Lurker egg is kind of a blocking at the 11:30 o'clock just to make sure nothing comes in there. Zerglings were killing a single Marine scout that managed to get through. The Kwanro going to go for the Queen's Nest. So he gets his 3 bases up, going to go for Queen's Nest, most likely just for Deflyer support. We're going to see what he manages to do. Not playing his aggressive style with his mutalisks at the moment, not really also supporting with ground units. I really like Kwanro's style in that he can run up from whole lots of positions. Really does a nice micromanagement, different kinds of troops. Actually, already starting to contain on Bogus here. Bogus does have several tanks, doesn't have a science facility out yet. He's going to try to wait on that before he tries to break out. Does have scans, but those 4 lurkers at the front are really going to be dangerous for you. You might decide to scan just to be able to siege at those. Mutalisk is going to try to get inside the main. Far too many turrets.